Hello everyone, Loremaster of Sotek here, back with the last video we are going to be doing on the speedrun Altharian campaign, because thankfully I don't have to make any more updates, because we're finally at the end. But I'm here with Legend of Total War, the man, the myth, the cheese master himself, the great lord of exploits and proving how goofy the AI can be, is here with me, so everyone say hello to him.
Yep, and hello Sotek, how you doing, dude?
I'm doing great. I really appreciate all your help with this in many ways.
No, thanks for inviting me to this. When you first told me about it, I was like almost immediately excited about it. Because people come to me with ideas all the time, and most of the time I'm just like, nah. But this was good. This was good.
Well, I'm really glad that it worked out. It actually turned out a fair bit better than I expected. But before we get into how awesome and perfectly it worked, I think it bears mentioning how imperfectly it started. So just because I think for me the point of this conclusion video is a good thing to talk about, just to share with everyone kind of what happened behind the scenes, just for I don't know the word for it, but just for the sake of records.
Transparency.
Yeah. So for those unaware, when I proposed the idea to Legend, I think we both had it in our minds that the objective would revolve around seeing how people could trick the AI into doing something that would make it like easier to defeat in a horrifyingly difficult circumstance. And
yes, definitely.
yeah, and then less than 24 hours after we submitted the rules, which I will take the full brunt of the fall. I will jump on the sword.
It's not. I didn't think of it either. I did I knew there was a timer. It didn't even cross my mind that you could just wait out the timer and just hide. It didn't even cross my mind. So it was a complete oversight by me as well. You know.
Yeah. So we found out, as any of you who may have been following me over on Twitter or saw the update video that I put out, less than 24 hours when the run started, a handful of people managed to discover that you can just hide. You could disband your entire army on turn 1, hide Eltharion in a forest off to the left, or you could put him in the fortress and just run your Arcane Phoenix around in circles, and it would result in a win, because there's not a fail state if you don't get killed in the final battle.
That seems like such a massive oversight from CA.
Oh yeah, and I sent an email about that. But,
sure, they're gonna fix it.
Yeah. But I mean, it was really funny, because for those of you who are aware of speedrunning, like the global video game speedrunning community, the whole point of speedrunning tends to revolve around bugs and exploits. You know, people like jumping out of frame, or finding weird, using weird clipping issues, or all sorts of crazy stuff. So seeing that happen right out the gate was appropriate, I guess, for lack of a better term. But I did award Grimwind, who I'll throw in an interview here for those of you who want to hear it here in just a sec. But I did award him with a prize for finding that exploit, though we did edit the rules a bit because, well, I've made a whole video talking about our reasoning behind it, just because we didn't want it to devolve into a competition of who can wait in the corner the fastest. Because
it would have killed the spirit of the contest and made all of the runs very uninteresting, because everything would be the same. The problem with that bug and exploit is that anybody can do it, and if anyone can do it, it's not interesting. Whereas the actual winner, people tried to replicate that. It's not easy. Not anyone can do that. You have to legitimately be good at the game.
Yeah, and that's it. You know, there would be no contest. But I have a whole video on that I'll link in the description if you want to go check that out for more details, and I'll have the interview here. Hello everyone, Loremaster of Sotek here, and today with me I have Grimwind, the individual who, according to my records, was the first person to discover the Turn 1 exploit for the Altharion the Grim Vortex campaign for the speedrun challenge and sent it in to me. Because there were quite a few people that discovered it, but Grimwind, by a mere 6 minutes, I might add, was the first person to submit a full run using that exploit. So I wanted to go ahead and invite him on here all the way from Finland to talk just a little bit about his experience with the run and all that stuff. So let's go ahead and start with how'd you figure out that you'd be able to get away with just hiding Eltharion in the forest back there?
Well, it was after a few attempts, I set out to, well, of course, get the best record of turn 1. And it didn't look too hot doing the fight normally, on legendary difficulty, of course. So after a few draws, I just paused the whole map and tried to look for any place to exploit, really. And then I noticed that the countdown timer wasn't there on the UI, normally in siege battles. So I figured, what would happen if I just let out the timer run out? And I think that's what most people also figured out, of course.
Oh man. So looking at the timer, did you clue into the forest? Because interestingly enough, what I noticed is that you were the only person I looked at least on that day, that first day of submissions, who actually, because you had to run out the gates, right, and over to the side into the forest. Most people I watched tried to put Eltharion somewhere like off to the side in the fort, and then they had the Phoenix just strafe around. Did you find the forest first and were trying to like work with that? Or were you like looking for a good spot for Eltharion after you noticed the timer and the forest just kind of came to your attention?
Yeah, the forest just kinda came to my attention that it's just outside the battlegrounds. And it worked out.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you a lot for coming on, and I've actually been in talks with a couple of folks about like the larger speedrun community, so we'll be sure to get your name on there as credited for that exploit. I don't know what we're exactly going to call it, but we'll think of something fun on that. But congrats for finding that. And you're going for the grand prize as well, I assume.
Yeah, of course. Also trying turn 1 again, but let's see if we can find more exploits.
Oh man, if you found another turn 1, I would be amazed. A little hurt, but amazed. So have you like gotten it down to a specific turn so far, or are you just trying to find a way to force another turn 1 exploit to work?
Trying to get as few turns as possible, of course.
What's your record so
Hopefully
far?
less than 5, but I don't. It's gonna be hard, I think.
Oh yeah.
Unless we find another huge exploit.
Well, we'll have to see. I mean, that's what the goal is, at least the hopeful goal. But thanks so much for coming on here. I'm going to be sure in this video to include your run itself, or at least clips out of it, as a lot of it is, once Eltharion gets in the forest, just slapping that fast forward. But thanks so much for coming on, and I wish you the best of luck, and hopefully we'll see you back here on Saturday.
Alright, thank you.
So thanks everybody so much for watching. Please stay tuned to see more information later this week on the speedrun contest. Hopefully we won't have any more rule clarifications or changes, but I might be able to come out tomorrow with maybe someone else's speedrun or an update and stuff like that. But I hope everyone's enjoying it and is looking forward to seeing who will have the best run on Saturday. So thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll catch you next time. Bye. So after talking to Grimwind, we're past that, so now we can actually talk about the full contest itself. And I will say, this has probably been the longest 5 days that I've had in a long time, because it was a ton of fun. I will say, I am really pleased with how it turned out. I was worried that there wouldn't be much interaction between people, but it actually turned into a pretty bustling community of people constantly sharing various strategies, trying to one-up each other. We had a lot of one-upping. I'm very glad I opened the bragging corner. and then we actually had quite a bit of we had a lot of entries actually. I sat down earlier today after 5 p.m. and started counting across Discord and my email and my Twitter account, and I want to say we got well over 40 different entries. Which
that's a lot of entries.
Yeah,
but
and
the real question I have is how many people submitted multiple entries?
Only I would say only about 3 or 4 only people here on the Discord attempted multiple entries.
Right.
Everyone who emailed me were people that I think got what they thought, this is the best I can do, so I'll go ahead and send it in. Discord, where people were actually able to interact and see that kind of leaderboard thing we had going, they seemed to be much more interested in the competitive spirit of really gunning for that, trying to beat each other.
Well, I was right there with them, but just hiding in the corner. I just wasn't communicating, because anytime that somebody beat my record, I went straight back in to do it again. And some of those attempts took me a very long time.
Yeah, and I will say, I'm really glad that I decided to take more of a host role, because I would have had my ass thoroughly kicked trying to get it down. Just, I was blown away at the idea of having double-digit turns. And that only lasted for like, what, 3 days before everyone was in the single digits all of a sudden?
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy. And, when we started, we showcased your 15-turn run as kind of like a
Which
good...
I thought was great, but...
It was great!
Now, it's a pile of junk.
But, it was such a good, like, here's a good... all the emails I got, nobody emailed me with 15 or above. All of them were at least a 14-turn run. I think a lot of people were able to look at that and go, okay, that's the bare minimum I need to do if I'm going to even participate in this. But good lord, I didn't expect us to shave that down by more than half. Like, that's insane.
Didn't expect it either.
But I mean, that just goes to show, I guess, when you have enough of a worm on that hook, and I really do think the competitiveness of it really drove people forward, which I'm glad. Like,
speak on behalf of myself, that's right. I mean, I shouldn't have done as many attempts as I did, but there's something in my brain that just goes, gotta do it again, gotta do better. I don't know what it is, just it's competitiveness.
Oh yeah, and I sympathize with that. I was like that am like that when it comes to tabletop games. Like when it comes to like, especially like back in the days when Warhammer Fantasy was on tabletop, I spent an ungodly amount of hours. Like you'd sit there and be doing like the math of like percentages and like dice percentages and stuff, trying to figure out like what's the optimal build here. Because it just gets, I don't know, it just satisfies something in your brain that's hard to express. And it's just a heat in your skin that just keeps you going. But I'm really glad that this was able to fulfill that, because there's a lot of cool competitiveness in Total Warhammer in the multiplayer community, but I really think there's some untapped potential in single player to get that same level of
that much. I mean, there's a little bit on the Reddit with I see a few blitzes pop up every now and again, but for the most part, it's not super competitive on the single player.
Yeah, which I think this goes to show it can be. We just, we have to find new approaches to it, because it's not simple with a strategy game. We don't have the luxury of just being like, oh, the fastest time, because everyone's PC is different, and it gets complicated really quick. But I'm really happy with how this turned out. And from there, earlier we were actually talking about exploits, and I think another point worth addressing, just because I haven't had a chance to address it because it only came up today, to my knowledge, is that if you would mind telling everyone listening about it, there was a new exploit found today.
I only just saw it today. I can confirm that it works, but it is super tedious and not recommended. So basically what you do is, as of turn 1, you basically trigger the battle, you go and fight the battle, and you have to go and capture one of the Broken Axe's heroes. It can't be one of the generic green skins. You go and capture one of their heroes and then retreat from the battle, and you actually get to keep it. And so you execute it for the extra experience, and then you just go back in, because when you lose the battle, it doesn't actually cost you any movement, but it does cost you movement to go back there. So it uses up about 30% movement, so you can do it maybe 3 or 4 times a turn. So what you end up doing is getting Eltharion, and getting Eltharion a lot of experience, and also get a lot of Ladriel's Blessing. So by very early on, you've got Eltharion at like turn 8, and you've already got, say, 40 to 50 Ladriel's Blessing, and then you go into the battle for real, and you've got all those bonuses up, and you've never even had to leave the region.
So not man, that's crazy. So which just I've seen one version of this attempted, and it's literally like, oh yeah, you can technically win in 4 turns, but it's like an hour
It's
plus per
tedious.
turn.
It's super tedious. It's like I was doing it for a couple of hours today. I'm just like, "No, this is just unbelievably tedious because like the maximum amount of experience you're gonna pull out of it is 700 from interrogating and executing, and it's just unbelievably tedious. You would have to have an ungodly amount of patience to go through it, and if you were like part of the rules were to do it all in one video, to be able to do it consistently every single time, that is extremely difficult. Like when I was doing it, I maybe had a 30% chance of success actually capturing the hero, because what ends up happening is the wyverns that come in, they go gunning for your phoenix, and it just makes it really difficult to get that dude. But one thing that makes it easier is the fact that that particular wizard, Vorglum One Finger or whatever, he keeps miscasting throughout the battle. So it's possible, it's very unlikely, but it's possible that before he even enters the city, he's down to 25% health because he's miscasted so many times.
Man, and I will say I find it hilarious that not only can you just hide and wait until the battle's over to claim victory, but they also have it where you could just, if you realize the battle's too much or you've got what you wanted, you could just retreat and there's no downside. Like Grom invades the city, but I retreated, so it doesn't count.
Game where you can retreat from a siege battle, but you can retreat from this one.
Yeah, and it doesn't count as like a failed campaign state. Even though, like, when you're about to fight, it's like, oh, yeah. I can't help but feel that when they tested this one, everyone must have just tried their hardest and nobody thought to, like, intentionally throw the flag in.
Yeah, I think they were putting all their effort into making sure the greenskin update was good, which it was. And they were just like, high elves are good. We'll just put this, just slap it down with nice city and we'll just see how it goes. And there's just so many oversights.
I have a very strong suspicion that some of these things will probably be patched with the hotfix.
Yeah, I would say so as well.
But I am very pleased that our ultimate winner didn't actually use either of those exploits. He did it the rough and tough way, which is great.
Yes.
And speaking of that, we're gonna actually go have a conversation with him and talk about his run right now. Loremaster Sotek here, and I've got with me Legend of Total War, the man, the myth, the legend himself, and I have got our official winner of the Eltharion the Grim speedrun contest. We've got Anticity here, who actually, funny enough, was on top of the leaderboards through most of the event. I think there's only a few times where someone managed to jump ahead for a little bit, but he was almost always on top, constantly submitting some crazy runs. And we have him in here just kind of to talk us through his experience, because I'm sure a lot of people are curious to hear the method behind his madness, and how he managed to somehow get this entire campaign, the crux, the final battle, one of the biggest siege battles Creative Assembly has given us for Warhammer, and slapped it down to a mere 5 turns to claim victory. So, Anticity, thanks so much for joining us, and why don't you go ahead and talk us through your experience of maybe your first looking, like how you approached it at the start and kind of started to develop your process for shaving off turns.
Basically day one, I wanted to see if turn 1 was possible, just to try rushing it as quickly as possible. But very quickly you can tell that you just run out of ammo. And then after that, it was just trying to find the next benchmark, which was eventually the around like turn 13 or 15. And a lot of other people in the community were starting to mention that. So basically, once you had infinite ammo, I found that you could pretty easily defend the walls. And then that's what sort of rolled into cutting down the turn timer from there.
So would you say that in that case, the first kind of big hurdle was trying to like secure so what's the best way to like get those ammo stores? Was it like researching certain red skill trees or capturing a certain prisoner? What was the aim there to try and deal with that problem?
Well, just
So
out of curiosity, what was the fastest time you were able to get to rank 12 in turns?
to rank 12, I think was turn 12 or 13, I think.
Yeah, I know I was able to get it on turn 7, but I had to really fight a lot of battles. I literally had to force march Eltharion with a weaker army so that other armies would attack me. I was literally fighting 4 battles every single turn at some point to get to rank 12 by turn 7. And I thought when I had done that, that's it. No one's going to beat that. And then you came out with that turn 5, and I was like, oh, I'm going back in.
Yeah, actually, that's a good question. So, Anticity, were you always on the okay? I just need to have as much ammo as possible train, or did you originally think, okay, I need to have that Griffin Eltharion or that Eltharion at a certain level, and then pull back from that?
So the first one the first successful one was with the Griffin Eltharion, and the battle was won so easily at that point. I figured that we could probably cut that entirely.
Cool. And then earlier I asked, so what was the plan to try and have the most ammo as quickly as possible? What were your shortcuts?
So the two main things were leveling up Eltharion and getting the red skill tree, and the other one was leveling up the defenses of the city. But to do that, you'd need to capture like 5 or 4 different captives.
I think it's
Would-
3 minimum.
Yeah, which eventually became the main hurdle to beat, since the extra 2 archers you get from it really help with the fight.
Yeah, they're especially useful because they have armor piercing. So what I did was save their ammo until like the rogue idol came around and the black orcs. So I used the archers on like the lower tier stuff and the sentinels of Astarol on the higher tier stuff, and that worked out really well. So you're absolutely right. You need that in order to do it.
So I guess the next thing I would ask is, so I've both of us have watched your run, and I'll be showing it off for everyone to watch because it is a lot of fun. And there are actually some surprisingly positive RNG moments between getting the apotheosis item for all those free heals without having to spend the winds of magic, and then that huge physical resistance buff right before you went in to the final battle. Do you have any particular reactions or moments that you remember of acquiring those two? Because I imagine those were pretty significant buffs in your mind.
Yeah, the apotheosis item was huge for sure. Because a lot of the other items, even like I think some weapons that give Eltharion terror and fear, don't really make a big enough impact. Although the physical defense upgrade for the army was sort of expected, or at least something along the lines, since I was expecting to get the sort of the sea pirate cove, and like some of the other buffs are like frenzy for your whole army, which is also good.
Awesome. And then I will say I enjoyed your, because I've had a lot of entries that I've sorted through, and there have been a lot of people who have managed to claim victory very, very quickly, or get close to your time, or of course using like the turn 1 exploit that we had to deal with the first day. But those weren't, I don't want to say they weren't entertaining, because it was fun seeing people breaking the games in various ways. But your run is like very entertaining, especially with how desperate the last battle was. There were a lot of moments where I was watching it, and it's like I knew the outcome, but watching it's like, this is getting kind of close. Like, did you feel confident going into that last fight, or were you sitting there kind of watching your troops like breaking away and routing and stuff and starting to worry a bit?
I felt confident going into it, but by the end of it, I was starting to get pretty worried, especially with how much time I had put in, and also since I didn't do any of the corner camping, just because I just hadn't thought about it.
That's
It was
great.
also a very quick run as well. 40 minutes to do the whole thing is very fast.
Yeah, I actually think that's one of the fastest submissions I had, even with people who like did some of the exploits and stuff. Keeping it under an hour is nuts. So
Yeah, none of my attempts were under an hour.
yeah, so congrats on that. And that actually brings me into a good point. You kind of mentioned that you've been spending a lot of time with this. How much do you have like an estimate of how many hours you've put into trying to get your ideal run?
With probably like 4 hours a day on weekdays, or actually, yeah, probably around 4 hours a day. So maybe like 20 hours to get this one.
Oh man, I'm so sorry.
Well, it was fun all the way, so thanks for hosting.
Well, that's great to hear. So talking about your experience through it, so it sounds like you had a positive experience, but do you have any like particular notes or thoughts about how you heard about it and then the decision to do it and then actually getting through it? I mean, was it always like, were you always wanting to push yourself to try and get a better run just for you, or were you like constantly checking the leaderboards? Were you secure when you turned in that 5-turn win? And any highlights or any community aspects? Did you have a good time interacting with others in the community that were trying to pile stuff together? Any thoughts in that broad spectrum?
Well, I definitely enjoyed the community aspect of it. I definitely wouldn't have gone to 5 wins without all the members just pushing the turn times down and also just giving tips and tricks along the way. And I just heard about it through Reddit, and since I had played a bunch of campaign before, I thought I might as well try and give it a shot.
Well, that is awesome to hear. I'm glad it really pleased me to know that a lot of people worked together on it. I wasn't sure, you never know, especially with a community like this, that I have spoken in recent days to a very niche, tiny handful of people who have done speed runs of Warhammer, but they do a very different way of it. So I was really curious to see how the community would handle it. And I was really glad that it seemed to be much more of a cooperative experience than I was expecting.
I don't even know if it's cooperative. It's definitely very competitive because I think that everyone was just building on top of each other, but just being very pleasant about it. But like from my point of view, like when I was done with my 7-turn run, I was like, cool, that's it. That's the last time I've done it. And then I saw in the Discord Anticity dropped the 5-turn one, and it forced me to have to go back into it because it was very competitive of me. So I think that was a lot of that. Like I know Axiom Razor, who I was almost certain was going to win this, just kept trying because I'm pretty sure he was done with 7 turns as well, but he's very competitive as well and wants to get that best time. But you were able to get the 5-turn run, so that's really good.
Yeah, and I guess oh gosh, I had a thought and it just ran away from me. But yeah, I am really pleased that now I remember what it was. I'm glad to see, though. I think for me, the big takeaway that I was excited about was that people were willing to be like sharing a space and talking, either bragging or competing or cooperating or however you want to call it. And, I'll admit I was a little worried it would kind of be a lot of people like hiding away in their respective holes, trying to get the best run, but being like super secretive.
That's me. That's what I was doing. I shared my 15-turn run. I didn't share any of the others because I didn't want anyone to beat it, and they kept finding new things on their own. I had to keep beating my own time.
Man.
But I wasn't cooperating with anyone. I wasn't telling anyone what to do.
So Anticity, how does it feel to know you were being a nightmare to the Cheese Master?
I didn't even know he was doing runs until like the last day.
Yeah, you cost me a lot of time, dude.
You're getting him in trouble at home. How could you?
Yeah, my wife was telling me to stop.
Oh man. Well,
stop doing that run.
Anticity, thanks so much for coming on here with us, my dude. We'll be looking at some clips from your run and kind of talking about it. But thanks so much for participating. And
yeah, just on one final note, how does it feel to actually get the second best run in the whole community?
It feels pretty amazing, but it was very surprising that new things were found basically every day that would cut down the time.
Yeah, and what I mean by second best run, here comes my brag. I got it in 4 turns.
Oh, jeez. Nice.
Don't worry, though. He's not allowed to compete for the prize.
I'm not allowed to compete. You still win, but I got 4 turns.
Good job, man.
He couldn't.
Yeah, good job to
He
you.
just couldn't help it. You had to one up someone
I
right at the
couldn't.
end there.
Yeah, look, I was going to be satisfied with 7. I was satisfied with 10. I was like bragging to Sotek about 10, and then I saw someone done like 8. I was like, oh, damn it, I got to beat it by 1 turn. And then you did 5 turns. I was like, that 4-turn attempt was just me just balls to the wall. That's it. I'm just going to go in, and I don't even care. I'm just going to do it.
So anyway, Anticity, congrats on being $500 richer. We will be in contact with you shortly about that. And thanks so much for joining us, and thanks so much for competing. I look forward to everyone enjoying your run, and I hope we get to do something like this again in the future. I don't know how we're gonna do it, but that's something we'll look at another time. But I am glad that we're able to put this to rest. A part of me thought about extending it another few days, but it's like, I think
that
we're
would have
good.
been a nightmare.
Yeah, we're
I
good.
was dreading somebody getting another 4-turn run or a 3-turn run because I was already in my mind thinking how to do it in 3 turns, and I didn't want to put myself through that again.
There's already a few 4-turn ones going about.
I have heard about a new exploit, but we'll be discussing that here in just a little bit. In any event,
Yeah.
I think that will be the end of this little part. So thanks so much for joining us, man, and congrats again.
Yeah, really well done. You pushed me to become a better player as well, and I appreciate you for that.
Thank you guys for hosting.
Okay, so want to say congrats and thank you to everyone who participated. We had a good number of entries, but we also had a massive amount of people hanging out in that Discord who were just helping out or trying to find fast ways to do things or just watching and interacting. I don't know how many people are on that Discord, but it's a lot. There's over 100 people on the speedrun Discord right now. Which is insane. Yeah, there's exactly 110 people, excluding Legend, myself, and the mods. So it has been awesome to see an actual community crop up around this, and I really, really hope that they will that we can continue to work with this in some way in the future. But before we get into any kind of close statement, we gotta talk to Legend right here about his experience with these runs, because Legend actually, right now, as of this recording, has the best time.
Yeah. So, I was satisfied with 15 turns. Like, obviously, at the end there, I allowed for a bit of wastage time because I didn't want to win this. But then when I started seeing times that I wasn't expecting, it drove me to go back in there. Like, I think it went like this. I did 15 turns. Somebody did 11 turns. Then I was like, okay, I got to one-up that. So I did 10 turns. And then somebody got 8 turns. I was like, all right, going back in there. And then I did 7 turns. And then when I saw 5 turns, because that was almost immediately after I'd done the 7 turns. So the 7-turn one was probably the hardest one for me to do. It took the longest amount of time. Probably spent about 10 hours in total trying to get down to 7 turns. Now, this is when I was sure that we needed unending volley. I didn't want to do the battle without unending volley, so I had to get to rank 12 as fast as possible. 7 turns was the fastest I could do it without using the fighting the battle constantly and capturing heroes exploit. What I was doing was force marching Eltharion into the south and having the parts of Sartosa attack him while in force march, capturing the hero, and then because they don't have all undead units, I was able to attack them again over the next turn. So a lot of force marching, a lot of really risky battles. But then when the 5-turn one came out, I was so exacerbated by that point. I was like, that's it, 4 turns, I'm just going to go in, I'm going to give this one shot, I don't even care if I lose. And I won on the first try. And I got Eltharion to rank 6. I had 19 units, and I just fought the battle, and I won it by the smallest margin. And then that's my 4th.
I bet it felt good, though.
It did feel good. I mean, I'll release the video later, and you can see, like, all the end bit there. Like, I just didn't think I was going to win. And there was a lot of emotions going through me when I actually got that 4-turn, because at that point there, I was almost certain, okay, nobody is going to get a 3-turn run. And then I saw that other exploit, and I was like, oh my god, I hope no one gets a 3-turn exploit. Because I was already starting to work in my head on how to do it in 3 turns.
Oh yeah, and there's a thank Lord there that at least that even with that crazy exploit we talked about earlier, it takes like hours. I haven't seen anyone get it down below 4. Like they're struggling to get 4. So I don't know if it. I don't know.
I reckon it could do 3, with that exploit. I don't want to.
Yeah,
I don't want to do it again.
That would be agony, literal agony. And but yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. I will as soon as Legends Super Run goes live, I'll make sure there's a link to that in the end card and down below that you guys can go check out, because that'll be really exciting to watch. And Tissy's run will have been either before this part or after this part. It'll be some part in the video, and we'll make up most of the length of it. But I do want to thank everyone who was watching, everyone who participated. This was a ton of fun, and thanks to Legend, of course, this was a buttery smooth collab, easily the easiest one I've ever done.
Oh, that's good.
Which is awesome. I had an absolutely blast doing this, and it was a wonderful time. So thanks so much for helping me out with it, because it would not have gotten nearly the community outreach or interest, I think, if you hadn't been involved.
All right. Well, thanks for inviting me to it.
Yeah, well, there's nobody better when it comes to just like dominating the single player and stuff. There's literally nobody better. I knew exactly who to call.
Okay. Well, that does make me feel good. Yeah.
And yeah, that's gonna wrap us up. So Legend, if you got any closing words, and then yeah.
I think we all deserve a break.
Yes, I absolutely concur with that.
That's my closing words. Time to get some sleep.
Yeah, I know that this has been crazy when going to work on lore scripts is going to be me taking time off, it feels like. So,
I put a lot of time into this, and I'm not even competing.
Yeah, but hey, you know, that's how addiction works, you know? All right, everyone.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Thanks so much for watching, and I would say we'll see you next time, but I don't know exactly what that's going to mean in this context, so we'll see ya when we see ya. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good night. Bye.